Reggie White was better known as the Minister of Defense because he could fold an offensive line one week and preach a sermon the next. He became a licensed minister at 17. He had more sacks than games played in Philly. He was the first high-profile free agent ever, pushing the NFL into real free agency. And he even helped spark one of the most legendary traditions in football, the Lambeau Leap. But for everything he did on the field, there was also something off the field chasing him too. His words and values didn't always sit right with people, and the backlash pushed networks away while keeping the spotlight on him. Yet, through all of it, he still won 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, made 13 straight Pro Bowls, and retired with more sacks than anyone in NFL history. Standing at 6'5" and nearly 300 pounds, and somehow still running a 4.6 40, Reggie White looked like he was handcrafted by God to play football. This is how a preacher became the greatest defensive end ever. At 12 years old, Reggie announced to his family that he wanted to be 2 things: a football player and a minister. In fact, he was so committed to his faith that he walked 5 miles to church every Sunday and Wednesday. When he arrived at Howard High School, that combination of faith and focus caught the attention of head coach Robert Pulliam, a former Tennessee defensive lineman who knew what elite talent looked like the moment he saw it. And by his senior year, he had Reggie dominating the state. 140 tackles, 88 solo, 10 sacks, All-American honors, and recognition as Tennessee's #1 recruit. However, despite offers from all over the South, Reggie decided to follow in his coach's footsteps, committing to the University of Tennessee. But before he even left for college, at 17 years old, Reggie White became an ordained Baptist minister. That's when the legend of the Minister of Defense was born. As a freshman at Tennessee in 1980, Reggie put up 51 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries, and he even blocked a punt against Georgia Tech that helped spark Tennessee's first touchdown of the game. But in 1981, he took over. Against Memphis State, he racked up 10 tackles and 2 sacks, one of which forced a safety. Against Georgia Tech, he sealed the win with a late fumble recovery. By the end of the year, he had 95 tackles, 8 sacks, and 3 blocked extra points. But here's the thing. While most players his age were spending Saturday nights celebrating wins, Reggie was doing something a little different.
I didn't do it my way. I tried to make sure I did it God's way.
But his journey took a hit in 1982. Literally. An ankle injury nagged him all season. And even though he still led the team in sacks, Reggie walked away from that year feeling disappointed, like he let himself down. So for his senior year, he was determined to come back better than ever. Against the Citadel, he set a school record with 4 sacks in a single game. Against LSU, he delivered a 12-tackle, 3-sack masterpiece that earned him Southeast Lineman of the Week. And in the Florida Citrus Bowl, he blasted Boomer Esiason so hard that Maryland's star quarterback never returned. The man was a nightmare. Offensive coordinators weren't just game planning around him, they were praying. He finished with 100 tackles, 15 sacks, a Tennessee record that still took more than 30 years to break, 9 tackles for loss, and even an interception. Reggie White left Tennessee as the greatest defensive player the school had ever seen, and it felt like he was just beginning to understand the power he carried on and off the field. Most players, after a season like that, walk straight into the NFL draft with their chest out and their future locked in. But Reggie did something that shocked the world. He chose the USFL, and of all places, Reggie signed with the Memphis Showboats, a team only a few months old and barely held together by hope and a handshake. But it didn't take long for Reggie to become the USFL's worst nightmare. In his first year alone, he piled up 12 sacks in 15 games. In his second season, he had 23.5 sacks, a safety, and a fumble he scooped up and ran back for a touchdown. And then the USFL folded. It was chaos for most players and panic for coaches. But for Reggie, it felt less like an ending and more like a door swinging wide open. Because every team in the NFL was now after the Minister of Defense. But ultimately, it was Philadelphia who bought out the final years of his Memphis contract, handed him a 4-year deal worth $6 million, and hoped he might be as good as the rumors said. At that point, he was still a mystery to most of the league. A 24-year-old with a preacher's voice and a defensive end's frame. He joined the Eagles mid-season, walking into a locker room that was still figuring out who it was. The defense had pieces, sure, but no centerpiece, no anchor. But all that changed the second Reggie walked into the room. In his NFL debut, he had 10 tackles and 2.5 sacks, and he didn't slow down. 13 games, 13 sacks, NFC Defensive Rookie of the Year. And by 1986, offensive coordinators had already run out of ideas. Double teams became standard. Some teams even tried triple teams.
The Dallas Cowboys right tackle retired during the middle of the season on Monday before having to line up and block Reggie White.
But by the end of the season, Reggie had 18 sacks, 19 tackles for loss, as well as a Pro Bowl and All-Pro appearance. And as the Eagles slowly built around him, you could feel something forming in Philadelphia. Something the rest of the league would soon learn to fear. But in 1987, chaos struck. A player strike split the year in half. Replacement players, canceled games, awkward locker rooms. Most teams looked disjointed and frustrated. But through all that mess, there was one constant. Reggie White played like the world around him wasn't allowed to affect him. In just 12 games, he recorded 21 sacks. That's an average of 1.75 sacks per game, a pace no player in NFL history had ever touched before or has reached since. Reggie's technique was ridiculous for a man that size. His bull rush could send a 300-pound lineman stumbling backwards. His rip move looked like someone lifting a garage door. And when he hit that swim move just right, it was over in an instant. While other players were frustrated around contracts, playing time, and the strike, Reggie stayed grounded. He prayed with teammates before games. He encouraged rookies when they blew assignments. He even took responsibility for mistakes that weren't even his. By the end of the year, guys like Jerome Brown, Clyde Simmons, and Seth Joyner were gravitating toward Reggie. Then came 1988, and with Buddy Ryan at the helm, Philly developed a whole new personality. That season, Reggie added 18 more sacks, another first-team All-Pro nod, and helped Philly claim its first NFC East title in nearly a decade. And the defense around him was so vicious, so relentless, that it earned one of the most feared nicknames in football, Gang Green. While Reggie recorded 11 sacks in 1989, guys like Clyde Simmons and Jerome Brown feasted because Reggie dragged the entire blocking schemes with him. A year later, he put up 14 more sacks and another first-team All-Pro. But just as Reggie and Philly felt on top of the world, life delivered a blow football couldn't prepare them for. In June, Jerome Brown, Reggie's teammate and fellow defensive lineman, died in a car accident. It shattered the locker room. Players who had always seen Reggie as their spiritual anchor watched him hurt in a way they didn't recognize.
Today, I lost a great friend. Philadelphia lost a great player. Jerome Brown died today.
And yet, from that grief came a quiet promise. We'll play for Jerome. What followed in 1991 was one of the most dominant defenses in NFL history. Under new coordinator Bud Carson, the mastermind who helped build the Steel Curtain, the Eagles' defense became a fully sharpened weapon. Still fueled by Buddy Ryan's 46 front, but now disciplined, varied, and suffocating. The result? Number 1 in run defense, number 1 in pass defense, and number 1 in total defense. A defensive sweep that hadn't been accomplished since the 1975 Minnesota Vikings, and hasn't been done since. Reggie was the calm storm in the center of it all, finishing with 15 sacks and a defensive lineman record at the time, 13 passes defended. There were games that became Eagles legend. In Week 3 versus Dallas, the Eagles sacked Troy Aikman 11 times and held Dallas to 90 total yards. Versus the 49ers, they held the league's most efficient passing attack to 85 yards. And in Houston, against the high-flying, run-and-shoot offense, the Eagles walked out with a 13-6 win, while their defense physically broke the Oilers. But with Reggie, there was no chest thumping, no trash talk, just a quick prayer, then back to work. It was domination delivered with grace. By 1992, everything around Reggie was shifting. Buddy Ryan was long gone, age was creeping into the roster. Gang Green was beginning to die. But Reggie White, well, he was still Reggie White. 14 more sacks and another Pro Bowl. But now he wanted a real shot at a championship. And thanks to the NFL's brand new free agency system, a system he helped create by taking the league to court as the lead plaintiff, suddenly Reggie, the most dominant defender on earth, was officially up for grabs. A 7-time Pro Bowler, 6-time All-Pro, 124 sacks in 8 years, the 1987 Defensive Player of the Year, the season he posted 21 sacks in just 12 games. In today's NFL, a guy with that resume never hits the free market. He gets tagged, extended, paid even before he asks. But in 1993, Reggie was free. And when that news hit, the league turned into a frenzy. Teams did everything they could to persuade him. Front offices flew cross-country. Coaches pitched him like CEOs. People even tried calling his hometown church. And for a moment, the favorites seemed obvious. Cleveland, Washington, the Jets, maybe Atlanta. Green Bay didn't even seem like an option. A place people outside of Wisconsin knew for two things: cheese and coal. And yet, they had something going for them. A new GM, a new coach, a wild young quarterback named Brett Favre, and a willingness to write a contract nobody else could match. They offered a massive $4.5 million signing bonus, which meant $9 million paid out immediately in the first year combined with the contract, and Reggie accepted. He was gonna be a Packer. And when his first season as a Packer kicked off, people quickly learned why Green Bay was throwing millions at him. During the season, Reggie put up 13 sacks, and even helped create the very first Lambeau Leap after he forced a fumble and lateraled it to Leroy Butler for the touchdown that started it all. He made everyone on the Packers better, even in practice.
Mirko grabs him and kind of pulls him down. He clubbed Mirko, and it was a domino effect, and all five guys just fell down. And Reggie says,
"Now God loves you, Mirko, but don't ever hold me again."
But everything really came together in 1996. The Packers finished 13-3, boasting not only the #1 defense in football, but the #1 offense too. Then came the postseason, and in a year full of statements, Reggie saved his loudest one for the brightest stage of all. Because against the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 31, he delivered one of the greatest defensive performances in Super Bowl history. 3 sacks, all in the second half, all at moments when New England was trying to crawl back into the game. And when the clock hit 0 and confetti rained down, the man who had once preached in tiny Tennessee churches now stood at the center of the football world in a 35-21 win. Reggie dropped to his knees in the end zone and thanked God. It was the only championship he ever won at any level. But even after that, Reggie didn't slow down. In 1997, at the age of 36, he delivered another double-digit sack season and helped lead Green Bay back to the Super Bowl, this time against John Elway's Broncos. And even though the Packers fell short, Reggie's leadership never wavered. He kept mentoring, he kept preaching, kept lifting teammates when they needed it. Then came 1998, 37 years old, and Reggie put up 16 sacks, the highest single-season total of his entire Packers career. That year, he won his second Defensive Player of the Year award, the last one of his legendary career. And when the season ended, he retired, at least for a little. He went home to Sarah, to his kids, to a life that didn't require ice baths or Monday film sessions. He preached more, he traveled, he visited churches. But when he received a call from the Carolina Panthers a year later, he couldn't refuse. Having the opportunity to come here, living here, gave me the opportunity to settle my family, White said. It's very convenient. Charlotte seemed to be a special place, a spiritual place. White was already involved in the Charlotte-based Morning Star Ministries and said he has been looking at land in the area to build a biblical theme park. Now, for the Panthers, reaching out to a 39-year-old retired defensive end seemed borderline desperate. But they weren't interested in Reggie White, the player. They wanted Reggie White, the teacher, the presence every young locker room needs. Still, Reggie started all 16 games that season and finished with 5.5 sacks. Following that season, he walked away for good, leaving behind 198 career sacks, which is still the second most in NFL history. And if you count his USFL days, the total jumps to 221.5, which would be the most all-time. He was a Super Bowl champion, a 2-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year, an 8-time First-Team All-Pro, a 13-time Pro Bowler, and a 2-time NFL sacks leader, all while setting records for 9 straight seasons with double-digit sacks and the most seasons with 15-plus sacks in league history. But even that doesn't quite explain him, because Reggie had this terrifying combination of power and polish, like someone blended a bulldozer with a black belt. His signature hump move was the perfect example. He'd let a 300-pound lineman think he had good leverage, then hit him with a sudden inside arm and use the blocker's own momentum against him. But what made him unforgettable wasn't just the violence he delivered on Sundays, it was the purpose behind it. Reggie genuinely believed his gift was meant to be used, not just shown. He'd preach in locker rooms, pray with teammates, sit with rookies who were overwhelmed, and veterans who felt lost. The nickname Minister of Defense was simply who he was. Even when he stepped away from the game, he found new ways to lift people up. From supporting churches affected by arson, to speaking at events to diving into biblical studies so deeply he learned Hebrew from scratch. Reggie was always chasing something bigger than himself. And while Reggie faced controversies for views at times, he always stood for his faith and what he believed in. His final years, and ultimately his sudden passing, left a hole that couldn't be filled. Both the Eagles and the Packers, two franchises that don't agree on anything, retired his number 92. And to this day, he's the only player in NFL history to have his jersey officially retired by multiple teams. Streets were named after him. Foundations were launched in his honor. And when people talk about the greatest defensive lineman to ever play the sport, Reggie White is number one. The Minister of Defense was the blueprint for what greatness looks like when talent collides with character. When a man who can break it in half chooses instead to lift you up. And that's why, no matter how many years pass, Reggie White will always be remembered for more than what he did. He'll be remembered for who he was. If you enjoyed this video, stick with Blitz, subscribe, and check out some of our other content right here.